right, season 2, The Last of Us, and yeah, it is getting down to even less. I'll talk about that in a minute as we dive into this one. Um, I'll go through the IMDb plot real quickly, but really not tailored specifically to season 2. After a global pandemic destroys civilization, a hardened survivor takes charge of a 14-year-old girl who may be humanity's last hope. Obviously, that's more for season 1. Season 2, she's older now, and we've moved forward a bit. This season has been out a little bit now. I think, I would assume that most of you guys who like it, interested, and so forth have seen it. So this will not be a spoiler-free review, mostly because of an event that happens here, and it's very hard to mention anything in the season without kind of spoiling that moment. So if you've not seen it and you do want to see it at some point, this may not be for you if you don't want to be spoiled of a big thing that happens. I also mentioned before I kind of get into this, not really familiar too much with the game. My gaming days are kind of over. I really wish, I would be playing games, but I'm not really going to make relations to the game or anything like that here. As I really enjoyed season 1. I think, it was a good introduction, especially not knowing the game, to these creatures and this new world and so forth. A little up and down because, kind of, similar to some of the other stuff, like specifically like The Walking Dead. You kind of get tied down in a little bit of the human side of it and the drama that's going on there. When someone like me primarily just wants to see, the creatures and fighting the creatures. And they had some really good scenes of that in the first one. So here we are in the second season, and I guess, like I said, Ellie's a little bit older now. Things are a little bit different. They've kind of settled in the town where Joel's brother lived. And obviously there's some tension there between the two, Ellie and Joel. And, they're not necessarily getting along. She's, kind of being that teenager self, I guess, kind of revolting and wanting to do her own thing in this new, different, crazy world. And obviously after the events of lots of crazy events that happened to them. And, not only that trip, but I guess in between. And we get a little bit of a glimpse of that as well. And then we do get a little bit, a glimpse of kind of a little bit what's gone wrong. I mean, you kind of know already if you see season 1 with what happens there, but you get a little bit of it in a short time between episodes 1 and 2. They really do a great job of kind of really nailing that distance between them and the issue between them before this big event happens. And really, as I mentioned, driving down into that human drama, person drama, before you even get, into the monsters and so forth. Huge drama there. And then really make you feel it. Make you feel the moment, feel that, and feel bad. And not only for what happens, but just because of where they are. And I'll be specific here in a second, and if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But you also have, the events of season 1 kind of follow into the season, and that small crew of people that survived from that incident at the end in the, I don't know, the building, the hospital, whatever it was, are on the trail, and they're out to find Joel and kill him. That's their mission. And, at first you kind of, when you watch this kind of show and a series like this and so forth, you kind of see, and like I said, I'm not into the game, and from what I understand, this followed, I think it was either episode 2 or 3, really followed the show, the game well. But when you watch a show like this and you get main characters, you kind of almost get immune to it, and you're like, whenever they're in a dangerous situation, you're like, oh well, they're main character, they're gonna die. I think The Walking Dead did a decent job of kind of trying to play with that, especially early on. But you still kind of realize that there were still a few characters that, no matter how dangerous of a situation you put them in, they weren't going to die. It just wasn't going to happen. But here we have something totally different. You have this group of people, and I had no faith in it. I'm like, no, these people, who the hell are these people that they're going to come and be able to kill him? And he's been so, such a, rugged person and survived so much in the short time with the monsters and other people. It's almost ridiculous, but unfortunately it happens. And it's a shocking, big, moment that turns everything. They managed to kind of by luck get him, not really captured, but to go with them and not knowing. And before he knows it, it's a sad moment. And, she watches it all. And, every little, kind of as the season starts and you see that drama between them, you're like, oh, this is the usual thing. We see this in shows all the time, the drama between them. They'll get put in a situation and then they'll move on and it'll be all good. And it just doesn't happen. It is a huge, sad, depressing moment. And I know that when this actually happened, without people really giving it away, a lot of people on Twitter, kind of hinted at it, mentioned certain things about it. And I remember, kind of seeing, this buzz about, this episode. And it is a fantastic episode. I mean, besides for that heavy moment, you get a lot of drama with the creatures. And like what I said, like, I want to see these creatures, or whatever you want to call them. And you get a huge moment of them. There's a huge chase. There's a whole herd of them. And a whole bunch of craziness going on. There's a huge fight in the place where they live, in their little town. So there's a lot to unpack in this episode. I mean, it is just absolutely huge. And it just ends heartbreakingly enough. And it's kind of shocking. And you're like, wow, this show really did it. They had two main characters here and they killed one off here. And in such an impactful, crazy way, and in such a crazy also episode with the monsters and all the destruction that they cause and the fighting and just so much. And my only thing with the this whole season 2 is, and that's almost an episode where you would have thought they led up to, and maybe you would have been maybe more in the middle or even a season finale. But this was early on, and then you have to carry the weight of that as you watch. But to me, the only thing with it is it is such a big and impactful episode that almost no episode after that really matches that. I mean, even the finale, it was heightened, but I don't think anything else that happened in the season really met that moment. And I like I said, I don't know enough about where this story is eventually going to go and everything that happens and so forth. But it just seemed a little odd to have that so early in the season. But I guess like I said, maybe where the story is going in her journey. I know she is ultimately the most important because of her immunity. But it just seemed such an important thing, an impactful thing that to have it so early and then move on for it. And, I think, they almost have to realize that, they do some good stuff afterwards, but you're just not really going to beat that moment at any other time in this season. Certainly you can try, but I to me, it didn't. To me, that was it. So a lot to even more to say about that, but I'll kind of leave that as it is. But that was just a tremendous episode in itself. really giving you everything you could possibly want, from the monster point to the human point, and basically changing everything going forward. Almost like I said, a finale without being a finale. So we move forward, and then Ellie's got to deal with this, and then it's almost a little bit predictable because you know her and you kind of know your writing and so forth and story that she's not gonna let this go. She's gonna want revenge, and that's what it becomes a part of. And she's gonna set out on revenge, and she's going to take a friend along with her, and we're gonna go on that journey, and we're gonna see their relationship grow, and you kind of make some assumptions there, but there's some other stuff going on, so you're not really sure. And ultimately we're going to find her in a different place, and I think it's Seattle, and that is where these people are from, and then we're going to learn a little bit about their world and what is going on in their area. And not only do we have the creatures, but we also have two groups of people that are fighting, and one seems better off than the other, but even though one seems to have the advantage over the other, the other one is still holding its own, and she's going to dive right into it and kind of get herself mixed up into what she wasn't expecting. I think she was probably just expecting to find these people there and then just kind of swoop in, kill them, and move on, but not find a war going on, and she finds herself in that. And so that's, adds to a little bit of the craziness. But I think, again, kind of the problem here is that you reach such a height with that previous episode that everything after that just kind of seems to tickle it down. And it's almost the rest of the season is almost just a huge exhale. Not that there are other moments, there are other moments with the creatures. The creatures have evolved a little bit, so there's something interesting going on there. There's apparently some ones that are a little bit smarter, that are planning, that are not just so, I'm just going to kill everything I see. So you kind of have that aspect going on. So there are interesting things. Obviously, there's some dynamics between the people that change in her and so forth. But really, again, the big problem is that it nothing matches what just happened, at least in my eyes. Again, not that it makes it a bad watch or whatever. You're still watching. You're still curious. You're still tied to her character and where she's going. But it's just a little bit not the same. And, it is a little bit not the same because you kind of got used to him being there, even though it was just really one season, and just, it was almost not even, he's just there for a second in season 2. But, you kind of still, you just missed that, and you got used to it in season 1. So I guess you just really have to suck it up and move on from that. But yeah, and then, as far as where it ends, again, really, not knowing much about this besides what I'm watching. It ends very peculiar and kind of with a twist and a turn. And, I'm really not sure, so even this moment, what to think of what happened at the end. And do I like it? Do I not like it? I think I'm just more curious of and I guess, if you want to leave it off somewhere where you just really leave the audience wondering, they did that for me. Again, like I said, if you're familiar with where this is going, and if they're following along with the game, then maybe you're not as clueless as I am. But where they left it off, I'm just like, wait, what? Like, you just didn't do what I think you just did, or are we flipping the story now? Or are we going in a completely different direction, new character? What is happening here? Is everybody alive? Who died? Is this, what you already killed off one, you're going to kill off the other, and we're moving forward in a complete different thing? I mean, would be huge stuff and huge, change and guts, or are we just fooled for the moment and we have to see what happens? So, I thought, and it was almost like, again, they almost did this exhale thing. And, just when you kind of exhale, you just kind of know that, watching these kind of things, that wasn't the end, and it wasn't the end. And then something else happens, and I guess I should just say it because, I already blew the big spoiler. but you have the big showdown. She comes face to face with the girl, and but she's not really prepared for it, and she apparently gets shot, or there's a shot that goes off, and you don't know really what happens. Other people, important people, are in the room. They've also been shot, and you're just like, could they really just wipe out basically everybody that you've just known and move in a new direction, or is this a temporary thing? Obviously, they flashed this forward a touch to give you a glimpse, and then you're just kind of left there. So, props to them for kind of leaving it off like that and confused, at least for someone like me. Again, if you kind of know where they're going, then maybe it's not as shocking, or you might just be like, oh, okay. But, I think, that final episode was good. It gave you some moments. Obviously, she's tested as a character, and she does things, but she does things that you would expect. She is maybe a little hesitant at times, but, she does it, and I think that's who she is, or who she's become in this crazy new world. So I liked it. I liked it. Of course, I always venture to have more monsters and more of that kind of thing going on. I think they made an appearance here or there. I would have liked a little bit more. I guess there's another one when they're kind of underground, and that was a pretty interesting scene. I think they kind of get involved in this war thing that's going on, and kind of use that as opposed to the monsters a little bit more. So definitely some intriguing stuff going on there. I'm not sure we're going to learn much more about that, because it seems like where it ended, we're kind of like moving forward and not really into that, but I'm not really sure again. So, not the grade A source here on this. But yeah, I think at the end, I really liked it. Of course, really huge episode there early on, and that kind of, aced it right there, and kind of put everything else, down below. So, yeah, I do look forward, and I believe, for sure it's coming back, and I don't know how long we're going to wait, but I'm excited for it. Definitely curious and lost to where they left us off. I can't wait for the first teaser. I'm probably going to not want to watch it, but I probably will. And, just to clear my mind and hope for certain things to be happening. And, but if not, I'll have some interesting things to say with a review of season 3. Definitely. So with that, I think I don't remember what I gave season 1. I fail all the time to look back and see, what I gave it. I think, I have to give this 4 Pools of Blood, just because of how spectacular of an episode that one episode was. I mean, regardless of the rest of the season, to really just do an episode like that, and just the emotions of it, and even the before and the after that you go through with that moment was pretty damn good. So I'm gonna give it 4 Pools of Blood, and hope for some really good things more to come from this series. So with that, horrorreviews.blogspot.com is where you can find all my reviews, written and video. Certainly mostly video reviews for a while now, so you can like and subscribe and do everything else that everybody wants you to do here on YouTube. If not, it is okay. I thank you for your time regardless. Twitter, Facebook information down below. Feel free to reach out to me there. Talk about this season, last season. Don't spoil anything else for me going forward. I'll sit here and suffer. And definitely in the comments section, if you guys want to throw in your comments about that episode in particular, please feel free to do so. So with that, I'll catch you on the next review, horror fans.